Hey, remember how easy the damage achievements in Epic Battle Fantasy 3 and 4 were? Yeah, I wish times were still that simple too. Small warning, you might want to dedicate an entire evening to this, or at least an hour or so, because a lot of it relies on luck that you may or may not get, and you'll see why later on in the video. So as she did in Epic Battle Fantasy 4, Natalie is going to be the one dishing out the pain for this achievement. It may very well be possible to do this with other party members because of the sheer number of damage multipliers that exist in this game. But Natalie can do it the easiest out of anybody, so I'm going to be picking on her. I'm also going to be doing this at level 36 because that's about where I was when I finished the game. But if everything else goes as planned, it should be possible to do this way before that, although I'm not entirely sure exactly what the mathematical minimum is. The achievement itself says level 35, but, well, you'll see. You should be about level 36 or 37 by the time you finish the game, but if you really need to grind, the Zombie Hydra and the Rapture are pretty helpful. So this is what everybody needs. Natalie is the one who we need to pay the most attention to for obvious reasons. She has the Obsidian Staff, the Dark Bobble Hat, the Dark Gown, the Balance Badge, the Gold Star, and the Hoop Earrings. All 6 of these things either buff your magic attack or buff the power of dark type attacks, or both. For skill, she's going to need the Black Hole Limit Break, which is the most important part since that's the move that we're going to be doing this with. And it can help to have the lock-on move on her as well. The accuracy isn't that critical, but it does also give you good luck, which can be helpful. Lance is going to serve mostly to debuff foes. He's going to have a couple of pieces of equipment that increase the power of buff or debuff skills. The Spine Snapper Gun, the Cardboard Box Hat, yes, really. The Coat of Teeth Armor, which is the reward for the October Halloween seasonal quest, so if you haven't done that, you're probably going to want to. I'm also going to give him the Timepiece, which isn't for buffs or debuffs, but it gives haste randomly, and since Lance has the move Haste, which can be used to give a free turn to another party member, I'm going to give him the Timepiece. His skills are going to be Enfeeble for debuffing foes, and once again Haste for giving a free turn to somebody else. Matt is also going to be a relevant party member here. He's going to serve to use buffs on Natalie. The Hockey Stick and the Hipster Shirt both increase the power of buff items, in this case Cola and what have you. He doesn't need any other special equipment, and he automatically comes with a temper move, which is useful but not critical. Anna is also going to be relevant because she has a couple nice arrows that you can make use of, but once again, she automatically comes with those, so don't worry about anything except leveling those up. Not having everything fully upgraded, both equipment and moves, shouldn't be too much of an issue because the other factors that we're going to be taking advantage of for this are, they're way more important. So it'll help if everything is level 5, but if some things are level 4, it's not that big a deal. In any case, all of the equipment and moves that I used in this video are fully upgraded because, you know, go big or go home, right? Anyway, before we get started, we're going to need a couple summons too. The Earth Sprite is useful for turning the weather to Earthquake, which makes perfect logical sense. But Earthquake, for those who are unaware, has a chance of staggering battle participants between turns, which is good because it'll guarantee the next turn is a critical hit. The Chunky Gloop is good for turning targets invisible, which is good for doubling the damage output of special attacks, magic attacks. The Viking Monolith can grant haste to your entire team, which is helpful but isn't imperative. Only use it if you're level 38 or stronger because that's when you'll have enough summon points to summon all 3. Since I'm only level 36 and I don't feel like grinding, I'll be skipping that. Also, obviously, you're going to want to find, buy, and eat all of the donut items that you can, the steroids that raise Natalie's magic attack. The reasons for this would hopefully be self-evident. I didn't go out of my way to do that, so if you do, you could probably do even more damage than I did pretty easily. It should also go without saying that since we're going to be using the Black Hole Limit Break to do this, you're going to want to have a Limit Break available, so either go and use one of those fancy chili peppers, or turn the difficulty up to Epic and go fight one of those fancy Temple of Trials bosses or something. Your limit bar should fill up pretty quickly that way. So for the battle itself, instead of finding one of the strongest enemies in the game to pick on like we did in Epic Battle Fantasy 4, we are going to go after one of the target practice slime bunnies all the way in the northeast corner of Greenwood Village. These guys only appear if you do a quest for the Samurai in the Bamboo Forest, and you can do this with other enemies, probably, but since the slime bunnies are basically punching bags with health bars who are weak to dark, it'll make things pretty easily. They also have a buttload of HP and they can't really do anything to you. I've been warned that they can give themselves the Blessed status, which would dispel their negative status effects, which would be annoying, but I didn't actually see them do that, at least on normal difficulty, and honestly, why would you do this on Epic? If you're interested in the math of how this is going to work, I'll go over that at the end, but for now, I'm sure everybody just wants to see some big numbers, so let's get to work. Save before you try. I had to do this a couple times before everything went exactly the way I needed it to, because there are just that many factors. And since one of the factors involved is summoning foes, you could very easily run out of summon points and have to go through the whole thing again. First, Temper Natalie, which sounds counterintuitive, I know. We don't really care about the attack buff, but it's the brave status for the critical hits that we're interested in. You don't need this now, you can reapply it later. Temper has a pretty short cooldown, and there's a good chance that Matt's going to just have a turn later where he's not doing anything. But you might as well get started now. Step 2. Weaken the target slime. Anna can use the Blessed Barrage attack, or you can use Natalie's Holy Light attack, or there's actually quite a few ways to inflict weaken on foes in this game. Anyway, you're going to want this to be in effect for as many turns as possible, so if you use the Blessed Barrage, just target one foe because the effect will last longer. But right now, it's the beginning of battle, and if it takes a couple turns to get it up to 9 turns of weaken, that's not too much of an issue. Step 3. Add some freeze into the equation. As you probably are aware, freeze doubles the damage that you take from non-fire type moves. You can use the regular frosty arrows for this, but the effect won't last that long, and you would definitely prefer that the effect lasts a long time. So instead you can take advantage of status combinations. In my case, Matt can use the iceberg move to inflict the chill status, and Anna can follow that up with some water arrows. When you mix chill and wet, the duration of the freeze that results is the duration of the second effect applied, so in this case, the water arrows with their 9-turn single target wet effect translates into a 9-turn freeze, which is really nice, and I kind of wish that I was aware of that when I was doing my regular playthrough of VBFI, because that would have made some things really easy. Step 4. Summon the Earth Sprite to use Earthquake to inflict stagger. Unlike in Pokemon, Earthquake is not a damage-dealing move, but as I said earlier, between turns it has a random chance of inflicting the stagger effect on random participants in battle. And again, stagger guarantees that the next hit that you take will be a critical. You could just roll the dice for critical hits if you wanted to, but this makes things much easier, and when the brave status is in the picture, you have a pretty good chance for a double critical hit. I'll talk about those when I go over the math at the end. I just realized I've been playing with this bottle cap on my desk for the entirety of this audio recording. I should probably put that down now. Alright, never mind. Step 5. This is where it gets hard because you need to wait for somebody's haste to kick in. In my case, Lance's, because he has the timepiece flare. And it has to happen on the same turn that the target is staggered by the earthquake. And this can take a long time. I was sitting here trying to wait for those combination of effects to happen at the same time for probably about an hour before it actually did. The earthquake effect expires after 5 turns, and in any case, the freeze and weaken statuses do wear off after 7 or 8, or however many turns you were able to inflict it for. So if this doesn't go your way quickly, then you're probably going to have to go and set up the whole first 4 steps all over again, which is really kind of a pain. Anyway, while you're waiting, Matt doesn't really have anything better to do, so you can keep the temper effect active on Natalie to keep the brave status up, and if you want to, you can also use the lock-on. I actually forgot to do that while I was recording the video portion of this. And as it happens, the good luck status does have an effect on your chances of dealing out critical hits, apparently. So if you want to have a better chance of dealing a double at the end when you use your big fancy black hole move, you should probably err on the side of caution and use your lock-on move when you have a few free turns to burn. I'm not entirely sure what the odds of the timepiece kicking in or the earthquake stagger kicking in are, but getting them both at the same time is kind of a pain. If you're impatient and you have the summon points to spare, like I said, level 38 or higher, you can make use of the Viking Monolith, and you're only going to have to wait for the stagger to kick in, which will maybe not happen immediately, but it should be a lot sooner. Anyway, once you've finally gotten all these things to happen at the same time, let's take a break and go down the checklist real quick. Freeze? Good. Weaken? Good. Stagger? Good. Haste? Good. Brave? Wonderful. Time to roll. Step 6. Lance, or whoever else has haste, can go and summon the chunky gloop to make sure that the unlucky sap that we're trying to do this to has got the invisible status. Once again, doubling the amount of damage you take from special attacks. If you need to swap any of your party members out, do it now. But this is where we decide to apply the stat buffs. Use the cola on Natalie to make her special attack go all the way up. This should be used by whoever has the equipment that boosts the power of the buff items. That's Matt for me. I don't know if anybody else can wear equipment that does that. Whoever has the equipment that increases the power of debuff moves, in my case Lance, once again, use Enfeeble on the target to drop their defense. Everything look good to you? Looks good to me. Or good enough anyway, because I am definitely not re-recording this to make sure everything goes the way I want it to. Now for the fun part. This is what you've been waiting for since you clicked on the video, I assume. Natalie, go right ahead and use that black hole limit break. How many digits are even in those numbers? Those are pretty big numbers. See how easy that was? Maximum damage achievement in like 9 not so easy steps. Okay, maybe it wasn't that easy. Math time. This is what's going on behind the scenes. If you're not familiar with the differences between percent increase and power multiplier, I'm going to be talking about both in this section, and it can get a little confusing if you're not on your toes. The short version is that your total power output is 100% plus the percent increase. So a increase of 150% damage would mean that your original damage is 100 plus 150 divided by 100% equals 2.5 times what you started out with, not 1.5 times. This isn't something that you're going to need to be consciously aware of because, as you probably saw, you're going to be perfectly capable of brutally murdering everything in your path with or without that knowledge. So let's start with the raw power. For better or for worse, the equipment buffs are additive instead of multiplicative. I really like that word, multiplicative. I don't even know if that's how it's pronounced because there's like way too many I's in that word. But as I'm sure you saw, the additive buffs are really plenty of damage either way. The Obsidian Staff is a 110% increase to magic attack. The Dark Bauble is plus 30%, the Dark Gown is plus 30%, the Balance Badge is plus 5%, the Gold Star is also plus 30%, and the Hoop Earrings are plus 10%. And when you add those all together, your magic attack is now up 215% from what it was originally. Next, the Obsidian Staff and the Dark Gown come together to approximately double the damage output of Dark-type moves. So assuming that my math is correct, which honestly I'm not even sure if it is because there are just so many numbers in here, our power output has gone up by over 500%, or a little over 6 times what it was originally. And we haven't even gotten out of bed yet. Next, buffs and debuffs. The Cola is going to increase Natalie's magic attack to plus 90% once the bonuses from Matt's buff item improvement equipment comes into effect. Would that technically make it a buffed buff? That sounds really lame, never mind. After that, we're going to debuff the foe's magic defense, and it is worth remembering that reducing your defense by 80% means that you're not going to take 80% more damage, but 5 times more damage, because your defenses are going to be left with 20% of what they were originally, and 1 over 20% is 5 times damage. The total damage multiplier is now about 48 times it was when we started, or percentage-wise, plus 4,700 and change. A 4-digit percent increase sounds like a lot, right? Yeah, it's getting way bigger than that. Critical hits. If you played an RPG before, you probably know what critical hits are. In this game, they do an extra 1.5 times damage, and if you can score a double critical hit, which is a thing in this game as well, this one stacks multiplicatively up to 2.25, because 1.5 times 1.5 is 2.25. So if you get a single critical hit, we get over... I'm just going to start dropping significant digits because this is getting ridiculous. On a single critical hit, you're going to be up to about 7,000% the damage of what you started with. And if you get a double critical hit, it's over plus 10,000%. What even, right? We're not done yet. Make your Dragon Ball memes now because this is going to go on for a while longer. Bunnies, right? Conveniently enough, bunnies are not immune to the weaken status. In fact, they're not immune to a lot of status, but weaken is the one that we care about because it increases the damage that you take from dark type moves by another 1.5 times. If you manage to get a double critical hit, your damage output is going to be increased by about 16,000%, or 160 times, approximately. Is that scary enough for you? The freeze status. Freeze is another one that the bunnies are not immune to. As I said earlier, I think, freeze doubles the damage output of the next non-fire attack that you take. And I'm just going to completely disregard the difference between percent increase and power multiplier right now because the number's going to be really truly gargantuan either way. Damage output goes up by 32,000% and change. And at the beginning, you thought that just buffing your attack stat was nice, right? Invisibility. I almost forgot about this when I was planning the video out. Invisibility makes it so that you take 0 damage from physical attacks, but double damage from magic attacks. It's actually pretty nice to inflict on yourself if you're up against a boss that only does physical damage. I can't name any off the top of my head, but I'm sure that some exist somewhere. But either way, when you add that multiplier into the Slime Bunny equation, on a double critical hit, your power output is plus 65,000%. Elemental weakness to dark. This is the last one, I promise. Let's not forget about elemental weakness too. Although honestly, if you do, I don't really blame you because there are just that many gosh darn factors that go into this equation. Bunnies take an extra 80% damage from dark type moves, which sadly is not quite the same as the 80% defense debuff. This one, in giant air quotes, only increases the damage you take by 80% and nothing more. But either way, the average damage that you're going to be doing is going to be 54,000% more than it was when you started, and the best case damage that you can do if you get a double critical hit is over 100 grand. In other words, you're doing about-ish 1,000 times the amount of damage that you would have been doing from a standing start. If only you were able to pull this off on the final boss, right? Class dismissed. Anyway, now that you know the procedure and you know what's going on behind the scenes if you didn't skip the whole math lesson, I do owe a great big fat thank you to the guy who wrote a guide on this in the Steam community area for Epic Battle Fantasy V. Even if you got the achievements by following this video, I do actually recommend going and giving that a read because 1, It was really well written, and 2, it's got some other miscellaneous tips for battle strategy and stuff that I just did not talk about in this video. And you should also actually probably go and thank the author, because if it wasn't for that guide, I would have had a much more difficult time figuring out how all these pieces fit together. Anyway, that's it for me. This is probably the last EBF5 video that I'm going to do for a while. I do still want to make my whole video review of the game, but I have a bunch of miscellaneous notes collected on this game, and I want to actually put them in order and not just do a big old brain dump in a video like I usually do when I do reviews. But that can wait. If you're following my channel, I'm going to be doing a minor Let's Play starting on the 1st of February and a considerably bigger one starting on the 7th. I've talked about this before, I just thought it might be a good idea to mention again. Whether or not you're interested in that, I hope you found this whole thing useful. Let me know how much damage you were able to do in a single turn in the comments or something, and I will see you all later. Run around, darn you. You are a very boring rabbit.